And we are responding to that news in the last hour that Lucy Letby, the former nurse, now serial child killer, has been sentenced to a whole life order. She will never come out of prison. 7 babies died, 10 survived. Every one of those babies is somebody's son or daughter. And the families, 12 families in total, had to sit through it's unimaginable to just even consider what that might have been for those families having to listen to the detail, the very detailed moments of what their child, their son or their daughter went through in those last moments of their life at the hands of Lucy Letby. It lasted 10 months, the trial, almost a month of that, around about 3 weeks of that, with a jury deliberating. This was justice being done properly, if you like. There was a good reason. You know, many people, you look on and you think, well, hang on, it'd take you 5 minutes, surely, to decide someone's guilty or not guilty, because we don't do it like that, and rightly so. So the jury had a job on their hands. There were intricacies to some of the, particularly the attempted murder charges, where it wasn't just a case of looking at something and deciding on a whim whether it was a thumbs up or thumbs down. This, in terms of guilt or not guilty, there was much more to it, and understandably so. But the sentencing, the verdicts came through last week in their entirety by Friday, although they were known to the court and to the media round about Wednesday last week, but could not be reported until all of them were in, and that was on Friday. And today, Mr Justice Goss handed out that whole life order. Daw KC is still with us. Just on that point, Chris, we've, again, often locked horns on the value of prison. I'm sending somebody to prison for life, and you have, just to be clear, always said if somebody remains dangerous, then prison is clearly the place for them to be. But you don't apply that to everybody. I get that. In a case such as this, where clearly, based on the evidence from this court case, this is somebody that is dangerous, somebody who could be dangerous again, so they're in jail. But what is your view on the whole life order?
I don't agree in principle with whole life orders. I never have, because I think the problem with whole life orders is that they could be much, much longer than anybody realises. This woman is, I think, 32 years of age or thereabouts.
33, I think.
It's conceivable. Oh, thereabouts. So it's conceivable she could live for 70 or more years. She could be 100 and in prison. I don't see that serves any purpose when someone lives to that kind of age. She could become severely disabled, for example, and unable to walk. And so my view would be that if someone gets to a point where they are simply incapable of representing a danger to others, they shouldn't be in prison anymore. And I don't agree with this idea that we'll have, as inevitably, I'm afraid we're having more and more very, very long sentences imposed on elderly people, included in people in the 60s and 70s. We are going to need a whole geriatric prison if we keep locking people up for such long periods into such old age.
Well, that's because these are terrible offences, right? I mean, you go to jail for
I appreciate that, but that, you just did think what the vast cost of that is to society. So I fully understand the sense that there is a need for punishment in a case like this. I understand that there is a sense that the sentence should be a form of retribution, and it's not just to do with, reform or rehabilitation. It's much more difficult to understand how such reform or rehabilitation could take place in the context of a case like this. But my view would still be that prison should be to secure the public. And if the public no longer require to be secured by someone being in prison because they're very old, disabled or infirm, then why waste public money on keeping them in prison? Because the truth of it is, to keep an elderly person in secure conditions with severe health conditions is going to cost £100,000 or more a year. And I would say to myself, surely better to spend that money on looking after children and young people and babies today, rather than locking someone up in 60 or 70, 80 years' time when they represent no danger to anyone. That's my view.